the Correctional Services Act gives him the power to consider medical parole and to grant it with sentenced prisoners who are serving a sentence of under 24 months. But in Section 79, he is enjoined to consider the application for medical parole only if supported by a report from the Medical Parole Board. So that really just means that they have to recommend it. He's honest in that he says that he rescinded that decision. I don't know how he has the power to rescind the decision of another body, but what he means is he just ignored it and granted medical parole under conditions that are not lawful and are not rational. And I've got no doubt that the court will find enough out.
May I just add to that as well, is that if one looks at the original press statement that they issued, they attempt to create the veneer that everything has followed the process laid down. It was only after the opposition and the media started to ask questions and to probe and to obviously get the information that we received that the medical board had been overridden that the truth started to emerge. If Mr. Fraser was so confident that he was acting within the law in doing what he did, why did they not come out straight off the beginning of the process and admit to what had happened? Why did it take the media and the opposition to uncover the tissues of lies that has been the course of the last week and to join the dots? And
why hasn't he made his thought process available? He keeps telling us that he's got these wonderful points that he considered, but we've yet to see them. So if they're so hot, why don't we see them?
Is it possible that the Justice Minister and the President were not aware of such a major decision such as this?
Of course not.
Also, can I add, Babalo, is it could the Justice Minister intervene even before there is a court case and ask for the decision to be reviewed?
Look, the Justice Minister could ask for it to be reviewed. There's nothing preventing him from doing so. But in fairness to the Justice Minister, he's not involved in this process. The Correctional Services Act allows the Commissioner to exercise his discretion, and the Justice Minister's got nothing to do with it. But to answer your question, there's no way in the world that Fraser took a decision of this magnitude without consulting and or informing the Minister of Justice and without consulting and or informing the President. It just doesn't happen, not in the civil service.
I think that's also borne out by the fact that Mr. Fraser was quite bold by coming out on TV and explaining what he had done. He would not have done this unless he had political cover, and that cover could only come from the top. And watching the President's Cheshire-like cat grin when he said that he welcomed the decision of Mr. Zuma's parole, it was very clear that this had been the issue right from the beginning. We know the ANC have been looking for a way to get Mr. Zuma out of jail from day one of his incarceration, and they now have obviously used the old trustee card of the medical parole that they abused with Mr. Shabir Sheikh and with Mr. Salebi to get him out.
Is his ending contract have anything to do with the brazen decision that was taken?
He's hoping to escape accountability, of course. He's going to, by the time we get to court, he'll be gone. That's why we've written to the Correctional Service, the Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee and said, summon him now while he's still there and let him come and explain himself. We need an explanation. And in any event, with all the ANC cadres on their way to jail, his contract may well be extended. I mean, what a useful fellow to have around. If you're on your way to jail, you can have someone there who's going to give you medical parole. How useful is that?
And I think that's also the bigger imperative of this case, is that, and why it's so important, that it goes beyond Mr. Zuma. We're hoping that the Zondo Commission report is going to mean that many other ANC cadres find themselves on the wrong side of the prison bars. And we don't want the ANC to have a ready-to-hand get-out-of-jail-free card, which they can play to ensure that those people don't face the sentences that they deserve for the pain, suffering and damage that they've inflicted upon the South African body politic.
Just an administrative question, have those papers now actually been lodged?
No, they're being lodged this afternoon.
And my second question relates to what you were saying about summoning into Parliament. I would have thought that would have been the logical step, possibly as soon as next week if the House has not gone into recess. Is this problematic that Parliament is going into recess when there are things like this it should be conducting oversight over, and now that won't be possible? And then a third question, if I'm stand to be corrected, but after the Shabir Sheikh drama, the law was amended to make provision for this medical parole board. Does what happened now really just make a mockery of that law? I mean, because now really what's the point?
So yes, it is problematic that Parliament is in recess now. Of course there's an election coming up and everyone needs to go and work, we know that. But it is problematic that Parliament is hamstrung in doing its job. That being said, there's no reason why the Justice Committee cannot be recalled to meet on this matter. We've been recalled in the past to meet on less serious matters. We've written the letter to the chairperson, it's gone to him. It was sent last week, or earlier this week, it was, I think yesterday or the day before. We're hoping for a response from him today. And then this is the kind of thing that the Justice Committee ideally should be recalled to discuss. Fraser needs to come and explain himself. Correctional Services reports directly to the Justice Committee, and we need to know what he was thinking. It's very problematic that it's going to be difficult to do. It should be a run-of-the-mill exercise. The law was changed after Shabir Sheikh. The Medical Parole Board was instituted specifically to prevent that kind of joke being allowed to happen again. And so, because there was no other way of doing it, and there's no lawful way of doing it, there's no rational way of doing it, despite what Mr. Fraser claims, the only way to do it is to completely ignore the Medical Parole Board if they're not in your favour, which is what he's done. So it's not lawful, it's not rational.
Is the DA in the court application asking for more details of the former president's health condition to be made public? And how does his right to privacy fit into that?
My understanding is from the court papers that we're not asking for that, but we're asking for the record of decision and the process that was used. Obviously, people have the right to privacy and the right to have their condition of their health kept private, but in exercising a public power, Mr. Fraser has got to explain what evidence he used to override the advice of the Medical Parole Board. That's why you have a Medical Parole Board, an independent board, to assess whether the person qualifies or not. If you override that, you better have a very good excuse as to why you've done it, because it's simply Mr. Fraser's not a doctor. Mr. Fraser would have to rely on the on the advice of the board, and if he's ignored that, particularly given his compromised position as somebody who is not a dispassionate or a unbiased person in this matter. We know his history with Mr. Zuma. We know the history as Mr. Zuma's spy boss. I would have thought there would have been a greater duty of care, even more transparency and accountability, which has not been forthcoming.
But just on the issue of the deployment of cadres like Arthur Fraser, in the next election, the DA wins the election with a majority in governance. Would it not be fit for you to deploy Glenys to head up the NPA, for example?
No, because Glenys is going to be the Minister of Justice, because she'll be the first Minister of Justice in a long time actually understands how the law works and its application. But what we will make sure is that they're competent, meritocratic appointments into the NPA. We won't be appointing Menzi Simelane or Sean Abrahams type people into that key position, because we want people who are going to put crooks behind bars and not spend their careers protecting criminals.
Cool. Can we ask somebody just to summarize in Afrikaans, please? I'm looking at Glenys. Just keep it streaming.
Okay, what do you want
Oh,
me
maybe just summarize.
Why don't you look at me, Lindsay?
Next time I'm holding you to it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, just basically summarize the essence of the DS case that you're lodging.
Die DA sal vanmiddag papiere inhandig by die Hooggeregshof om die besluit van meneer Fraser wat hy geneem het om meneer Zuma op mediese parole vry te laat omver te werp. Ons glo dat die beslissing wat meneer Fraser gemaak het onwettig is en irrasioneel is. Dit neem glad nie die bepaling van artikel 79 en 8 nie. Het is duidelik dat in termen van die korrektiewe dienste wetgewing het plig is om die raad van die advies of die aanbeveling van die medische paroolraad te volg om dit ernstig te oorweeg, en hy kan dit nie vir enige doorbeneete omverwerk. Hy self erken dat hy daardie aanbeveling geïgnoreer het en self besluit het alleen, ten spyte van die feit dat hy erg in konflik staan in hierdie besluit van hom. Het hy self besluit om medische parool toe te staan. Dit is lagwekkend, dit maak 'n grap van die korrektiewe dienste wetgewing. Dit is 'n ernstige vergryp. En dit maak ook maar 'n grap van die geregsleer en die grondwet. Meneer Fraser om in sy posisie waarin hy staan met sy verhouding met meneer Zuma om so besluit te neem sonder grondige rede en in weerwil van 'n beslissing van die mediese paroolraad wat dit nie ondersteun nie. Om mediese parool toe te staan is duidelik onwettig en irrasioneel.
Dink die DA dat meneer Fraser dalk politieke beskerming gehad het terwyl hy die besluit geneem het?
Ons het geen twyfel dat meneer Fraser politieke beskerming gehad het nie. Andersins sou hy dit nie gedoen het nie. Meneer Fraser het sy lewe lank nog politieke beskerming gehad en dis waarom hy homself so wangedra.
Dan net, as julle sê om die besluit van meneer Fraser omver te werp, vra julle dat Zuma se parool teruggetrek is?
Ons vra die hof om te besluit of meneer Fraser se beslissing rasioneel en wettig is en as dit nie is nie, dan moet dit tersyde gestel word, dan moet die medische parool uit die aard van die saak teruggetrek word.
Thank you.
Cool.
I take it that's being filed on an urgent basis, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank
colleagues.
you.
Thanks
and,
everybody.
thank
Sorry
you very
for
much.
the cold. Next time we'll bring coffee.
Is the best outcome him being put in another motor?